So in true Nintendo fashion, just when you think you've identified some kind of pattern or update schedule to things like new games for Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack, they like to throw curveballs and actually do surprise announcements that I think a lot of fans are not anticipating. And in today's video, we have to discuss the brand new update that is confirmed to give us 2 new N64 games in the month of November and discuss what that really means for the broader update schedule and a potential surprise December game going forward. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. As I mentioned, guys, we are just discussing one massive story today, and it has to do with all things Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack, and specifically a conversation around the update roadmap going forward now that we have the latest batch of N64 games. And yes, it is 2, not just the traditional 1 that we have typically seen Nintendo stick to since they launched the service, essentially since we got that first batch of games in October. Then of course a couple months went by without updates, but we had all of those games to check out for the first time. But since Nintendo started adding in new games to the service, they have stuck to 1 new N64 game per month, which has formed the expectation that that's what we will get going forward. However, we did discuss on the channel how September was a very interesting month, because while they did host a Nintendo Direct that of course outlined the future update roadmap schedule for N64 games going forward, they did not actually drop a game in September, leading a lot of people, myself included, to believe, is this going to be the start of a more gradual addition and maybe more sporadic releases for these games? Because yes, that is how they treat the other consoles over time as they age on the service. You can look back in history and see NES, SNES, library of games go through the same thing, where it was first monthly updates, then eventually kind of quarterly. At one point we had 6 months in between getting new SNES and NES games, and now we really never know when to expect them. And you do get the every other month roughly Genesis game batch drops into the service, normally a couple titles at a time. And the one thing that's been consistent all the way up until September is 1 new N64 game per calendar month. However, Nintendo is now throwing an additional wrench into that plan, because so far up to this point in time, we have never seen more than 1 game added in a single calendar month, and it honestly felt like that probably was not going to happen anytime soon. Although I have speculated that maybe once we get towards more of the titles that aren't the big blockbuster names, and maybe we get some of the smaller N64 games added in batches over the course of time. But I definitely didn't expect Mario Party 1 and 2 to drop in the same month in November, which you can see the following posted up over on Nintendo of America's Twitter, where it reads: "Party like it's the year 1999 and 2000, hit some dice blocks and become a superstar in Mario Party and Mario Party 2, coming to Nintendo Switch for Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack members on November 2nd. And first off, before we dive into what this announcement could entail for the rest of this year and then their update roadmap going forward, we have to quickly spend some time on the fact that Mario Party 1 and 2 in their OG form, with things like online play included, is a very hype addition to the NSO service. And I do think that this is the kind of thing that really drives home some additional value to the expansion pack. While not everybody is a fan of the subscription model and also that $50 annual price tag, I do think being able to experience childhood classic games that I grew up with, like Mario Party 1, 2, and ultimately we will get 3 at some point next year with friends online, and have them fully intact, looking better than ever with modern up-res techniques. And by all accounts, the emulation has been much better on these titles, and it has certainly come a long way from what it was at its launch state. I am a fan of additions like this, and getting 2 games in the same month does set an interesting precedent that potentially we could see that with some of these smaller titles as time goes on that maybe aren't the big marquee fan classics. But yes, we could speed up this ultimately what we believe to be 38 supported N64 games on this service, as that's what you can spot from the data mine that hit shortly after the service launch. Whether or not that's the cap for N64 games they'll add into the service, that's all up for debate and speculation, but I do believe we're at least getting 38 ultimately, and it would be nice to not just have them added in at 1 new game per month. In addition to these 2 brand new N64 games getting added into the service, they did also announce support for N64 themed icon packs for quite a few of the upcoming months. And I will say, while I'm not the biggest fan of the missions and rewards section and everything that Nintendo is doing with that, it's not a bad service, but I would prefer some kind of trophies and achievement system as opposed to what we have with this, which kind of feels like dipping their toe in the water to something like that. However, I am a fan of these personalized icons, and they're only available for a limited time, creating some of the hype around making sure you grab them while they're there. And you really have a fantastic lineup of icons such as Super Mario 64, Zelda Majora's Mask, the N64 itself, later on in the icon roadmap, which apparently this will be lasting all the way from November through February of 2023 with different tiers and waves and things. And by the way, you are required to be an expansion pack member or subscriber in order to access these things. You do have a awesome Ocarina of Time icon set, F-Zero even, Paper Mario, Mario Kart 64, Star Fox 64. I was thoroughly impressed with the lineup of icons that were added, and I definitely will be going out of my way to pick up each set when they are available for download. Now from there, we have to discuss the implications of what happens the rest of 2022, because now we are in a scenario where we know we're getting 2 games in November, and that's great. However, does that mean, and I've seen this thought a lot online, that is Goldeneye the game for December, and is Nintendo feeling extra holly and jolly in Christmas season and they decide to make the ultimate gift Goldeneye with online play on the N64 Online Plus expansion pack? It is entirely a possibility. However, you may remember on the channel we have discussed before that the Japanese Nintendo Direct trailer showed 2023 for Goldeneye, leading me to believe that it is not a 2022 game. However, there are some theories online, and I wouldn't necessarily call this a leak, but you can see the following statement from Nate the Hate over at Direct Feed Games, where he says, "Looks like we'll be unboxing Goldeneye in December, the best holiday gift." Now again, that could just be speculation on Nate's part. We can't really read into whether or not that is just a logical stance, because we're not apparently going to be getting a December game as it's scheduled right now, since we know the roadmap shows the 2022 titles and it shows 5 more for 2023. So you could slot Goldeneye in, because in the US Nintendo Direct trailer, it clearly just says coming soon, and soon you would assume would be within a few months from when that trailer is dropped, but we have no official date for Goldeneye, and we also just have that conflicting information from the Japanese Nintendo Direct where it clearly shows 2023. So I myself am personally treating this one as a coin toss, as I don't want to have all the expectations in the world that Goldeneye will hit this year, and then we're stuck around waiting until January, February, or even March of 2023. We don't know when they will choose to drop that game, and I would be very surprised to see Nintendo launch it here in the current year in 2022, and maybe even in the European regions, but then have Japan wait until 2023 for that game to drop into their expansion pack. It's entirely possible. We're talking about Nintendo here. They do the strangest things, but you have to keep in mind this is also most likely a cross-platform release, with Microsoft getting the game, I would assume, at the same date, because nobody mentioned anything about a timed exclusivity in their trailers, and Microsoft's trailer dropped as soon as Nintendo's Direct was wrapped up. So it's entirely possible that this game does finally hit the service. Either it's a surprise December game and maybe they actually move up the launch date in Japan, or we get it right around the end of the year here and it's like the New Year's game in Japan. It could be something like that. It could be January 1st over there and we get it right at the tail end of the year. Who knows what Nintendo's ultimately planning with this, but we do know we will be getting Goldeneye sometime soon with online play supported, and we also now have full confirmation that yes, we will be getting 2 brand new N64 games in the month of November, and the only question remains from there is how does Nintendo treat their update roadmap schedule going forward with other games, because could we see things like Pokemon Stadium 1 and 2 also be bundled into 1 month, but then maybe they don't follow that traditional 1 per month schedule, or having a single N64 game each month on the service regardless? Like, it could very well go to a sporadic update schedule like we see with all of the other consoles on the service currently. And that is one thing you really have to be aware of, is as these services mature, Nintendo does treat them differently than they did at launch with all of these consoles. That's what history shows us so far, and that's what I ultimately believe will be the case with N64 games going forward. But hey, if we skip a month every now and then and we get 2 games in the same month every now and then to essentially make up for it, I'm I'm good with it at the end of the day, and I just hope that we get things like new consoles and maybe some of those big marquee N64 games that are still missing, like your Super Smash Bros. Original with online play, and like Donkey Kong 64, and if we're extremely lucky, some more rare games, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Diddy Kong Racing. Yes, there are a lot of games still to be desired for the service, and I'm hopeful we will get many of them by time the update roadmap schedule is about to be wrapped up. But I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video, all your thoughts and opinions on the latest round of updates to NSO Plus expansion pack. Are you excited to check out Mario Party 1 and 2 again with online play? What is your personal opinion on how Nintendo will handle the rest of this year, finishing out 2022? Do we get that surprise GoldenEye announcement in December? Or do you think that, yes, that is a 2023 game and we will actually be skipping up the rest of this year with new N64 titles? So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around this topic. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, which is on screen right now. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.